Ladies. You know what? It's really funny that I'm up here about to talk to you guys about enjoying the outdoors when just a few years ago I was just an indoor person, okay? By no means am I an intense outdoorsy kind of person. I have never owned hiking boots. I don't have a backpack with one of those water bladder. I just don't do intense outdoor stuff. I went camping a lot as a kid, actually. I haven't gone in decades, so if I never went camping again in my life, I'm totally fine with that. So our family went on a trip to Montana last year, and we went glamping actually for the first time. It was beautiful and it was fun, but you know what? If we never went glamping again, I'd be totally fine with that too. So I'm not here to convince you guys to become an outdoorsy person, but I'm here to share my experiences in how an indoorsy person like me grew to enjoy the outdoors and how I got to share that with my kids when they were young. So hopefully you all will be encouraged to get out there with your kids too. So when my kids were young, when my youngest was 3 years old, and we had just started homeschooling my middle child, and I had a friend who actually called me up and said, "Hey, I heard you were homeschooling, and I'm thinking of starting a nature group. Do you want to join?" And I was like, "What is that?" And before you answer that, the answer is probably no. But thankfully, she just waved me off, and she told me that her idea was to meet once a week during the school year to go on various nature walks, easy hikes, and nature-related field trips. So that basically sounded like I had to get my kids out of the house, packed up in the car. We got to walk or hike, or probably I'll have to run after my kids for an hour or so. And then I'm going to come home with dirty kids like that, where they're just dirt covered. I was like, oh, I don't know. That sounds like a lot of work. And you know what? Truthfully, it is a lot of work. And sometimes, you'll fall into the ocean with normal clothes on like a fool, okay? That's me right there in the middle, okay? And that was just like 2 weeks ago, guys, okay? And I was totally unprepared for that, as you can see, okay? I'm just in normal clothes, no towel or anything. It's okay, guys, it's cool. It's gonna make for a funny story, obviously. So now that my kids are older and they're now in traditional schools, our time outdoors looks different. We aren't in nature once a week anymore, but we try to get out there when we have a day off. And when we go on family trips, we try to plan a nature walk wherever we're going to. So yes, getting outside in nature, no matter the stage of motherhood you're in, it will take some work. And I'm going to share reasons why we should be out in nature and some practical tips that I've learned that helped our experience be more fun and enjoyable. All right, so point number one, enjoying the blessings of being outdoors. All right, so research has shown that being out in nature is relaxing. It reduces stress, muscle tension, and heart rates. It lowers our risk for depression and quickens our recovery from stress. There also is correlation that it can restore and strengthen our mental capacities, like increasing focus and attention. A Harvard professor said that some of the benefits of time spent outside can include improvements in sleep, blood pressure, cognitive function, physical activity, as well as reduced risks of chronic disease such as type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. Doesn't that all sound great? Don't you want to go outside now? All right, so being out in nature too, it piques curiosity, right? When we see water in a creek, sometimes my kids will ask, where did this water come from? Why is the sky blue? A lot of times I'd say, I don't know. I have to look that up. Let's Google that right now. But we're learning together. That's fun. Being out in nature also stimulates creativity. Like we learned last time during Elise's teaching, we get to see a range of colors out there, and understanding design in creation can inspire us, like Wilbur Wright, who was one of the Wright brothers. He observed birds, and that sparked his idea to warp the wings on his airplane so that they could rotate the wings and stabilize flight. All right, so there's also benefits to babies and toddlers. There have been studies that show that babies who spend time outside sleep better at night. A study in Finland showed that kids who played in dirt had better immune systems. More studies are showing that being outdoors as children may prevent allergies and asthma as they get older. Harvard Health says that unstructured time to explore in nature, like climbing trees and splashing in a stream, can help kids to know their limits and to understand risk. So moms, don't we want our children to grow in these ways? So we gotta let them climb high on their own. We gotta have them climb trees and hang from branches. Let them roll down hills in their pants and make holes in them. Have them walk across rocks and logs. Have them hike on rockier and less even paths. Have them find ways to cross creeks and streams. They're learning to take risks and to take on challenges. They're learning to problem solve. And at the same time, they're actually understanding their own finiteness, their own limitations as well. All right, so I just told you a lot, okay? I just told you a lot of benefits of being outdoors, so hopefully maybe some of you guys are hyped to go out there, or at the very least, I'm hoping you're willing to explore the idea of going outside. All right, so let's talk about planning to get out there, how we're going to get out there, and keeping your kids motivated and engaged while you're out there. Point number 2, a little prep work will enhance your outdoor experience. All right, so first, we plan. We set a date. We pick the location. On your tables, I've created a handout. You'll see there's a handout with a list of some of the places I've been to with my own kids, and those are the places I highly recommend. These are all kid-friendly. Some of them actually have nature centers where you can go and you can see like animal skins, and some places have like bird nests. You can see all sorts of fun things there. Some of these parks offer free or low-cost programs, and I guarantee all those places on that list, they all have easy trails. I don't do hard, remember, guys? Okay, and they're all local. None of them are no more than a 25-minute drive. Guys, I had a much longer list. I had to cut so much out. All right, so now we do our research, okay? It's gonna be mostly the moms, obviously, or the parents, but that's okay. So we find out which trail should we go on. What might we find there? So let's learn about the native environment. What's in season right now, okay? Maybe it's spring and you'll see a bunch of wildflowers. What kind of wildflowers will we see? It's fall right now, okay? And woodpeckers are creating holes and filling them with acorns. Okay, so these pictures, guys, I actually took them myself on my phone on all the trails. This acorn tree you can actually find at the Irvine Regional Park. It's pretty cool. It's this humongous tree, and you can see like all these holes in it. I'm sorry if you guys have a phobia of like holes. I know some people have that. Sorry, it's like right up there, but it's cool still, right? All right, so, and if you're going to tide pools, what time is the best to go, especially for low tide? Those are all things that we have found when we were in the tide pools, and it's just so cool to see all the different colors and all the different animals, and it's very cool there. All right, so there are actually a couple of apps that I like to use for our nature days. One app that I like to use for trails is called All Trails. From there, you can find local trails, and you can actually filter them out by difficulty, distance. Is it kid-friendly, stroller-friendly? Is it paved, partially paved? It's kind of a cool one. It gives you the map of the trail you picked, and you can follow along so you don't get lost. That one's helped me a lot on my trails. For tide pools, I like to use the app called Tides Near Me. It actually tells you the time of low and high tides for the week. And so my tip to you guys is to go to the tide pools actually a couple of hours before the tide is at its lowest. And that way you'll have plenty of time to see, and you keep seeing things as the tide goes lower. All right, so for finding out what kind of flower, plant, bird, animal, whatever, I use Seek by iNaturalist. So that app is cool because you get to take a picture of what you found, and then Seek will give you suggestions on what that could be. And it might even tell you some interesting facts. This one is my favorite app. Sometimes they'll even tell you if the plant is edible, like this miner's lettuce. So the picture on the left is miner's lettuce, and if you pick it and you start eating it, your kids are going to think you're real cool. Okay? They're going to be like, wow, you're foraging and just eating random things. Okay, don't encourage them to eat random things off of the trail. Okay? But miner's lettuce is something that you can eat. It kind of tastes like spinach, but it's cool. And the picture on the right is actually called sour grass. And my kids love sour grass, and it's kind of embarrassing because we're on a trail and they'll like pick things and they'll eat it, and people are like, what are you doing? But you pick it off and you chew on the stem, and it's very, it's sour. And so my kids love it. They actually pick a whole bunch and they're like, I'm gonna bring it home and save it. And I'm like, that's pretty gross, but whatever. So now, let's get the kids excited. Okay, so you wanna share what you research. I sometimes would check out books at the library about nature, so the kids could flip through the books throughout the week. I also use field guides, so I want to show you what we use. Sorry. So I have these. Every time we go on a trip somewhere, I try to buy these field guides, and these are just sort of these. A list, like this one's called California Trees and Wildflowers, and it just has like this sort of list of pictures of like the flowers and trees and leaves or whatever that you might be able to see. And it's cool because they're coated, they're water resistant, so the kids, you don't have to worry about like ripping or it getting damaged. It's fine. All right. And so I also, for my kids, I got them to pack their own nature backpack. So we have these backpacks. These backpacks are about like $10 off of Amazon. And some of the things that had in them was like a small notebook, pencil. We had like, like a magnifying glass. Just trying to show you guys. Had like a magnifying glass. We had binoculars, all sorts of things. And we also had Ziploc bags because the Ziploc bag was used to collect stuff when they were on the trail. They could collect whatever they wanted. So a lot of times they had like 20 million rocks in here. I'm like, okay, it's gonna make your backpack heavier, but they didn't care. So obviously you don't have to have all of these things, right? My son never used his little notebook that I would buy for him and encourage him to bring with him. He would never pack it. He always lost his pencil. And you know what? Often he would just pack his like Pokemon cards instead. But that's okay, whatever. When my oldest daughter came with us, she would actually pack like 5 different books. She would pack like 3 different field guides, a book about foraging, and usually another book about nature. Her backpack was always full and heavy, but that's okay. Whatever gets them out the door and excited to go on an adventure. So while you're on your hike, you can use these field guides as like a scavenger hunt list, right? Some of these nature centers that they have at the park, sometimes they'll have scavenger hunt lists for kids too. Okay, so one of the fun things that we used to do was have them find a flower for every color of the rainbow. Sometimes I would have them keep a record of the different kind of flowers or birds or bugs while you were on the trail. It kind of just keeps them aware and observing, where they are and what they're doing. Sometimes I would point out the design of a leaf and we would marvel over that, or the intricate details of a wildflower. Okay, so in the next slide here, there's actually a special redwood grove in Carbon Canyon Regional Park, which I think is out in Brea, pretty close. And so if you guys don't know, redwoods actually don't thrive here in Southern California. They're more native to Northern California. It's a beautiful, special spot, and it almost feels like a secret spot. You're on this trail, and you're like, okay, whatever, it's just normal brown everywhere. And then you kind of turn a corner, and then there's this like majestic like grove just right in front of you. It's kind of amazing. It actually feels kind of Christmassy, and I've seen a lot of people actually, a lot of families actually take Christmas photos there. So there's a tip for you guys too. So these redwoods actually have a special bark. It's thick and it's fibrous and almost sounds hollow when you tap it. Their bark actually protects the tree from wildfires. So when we were visiting this grove, we had paper and crayons, and we did a rub against the bark. We would put the paper up against the tree, and then we would just kind of rub the paper. And so when we did that, the kids thought it was just so cool that we get to see the bark texture come out onto the paper. So we also used our senses to experience more of the tree. It sounded hollow, it felt rough, it smelled like Christmas when you were at the grove, and now we have a paper record of what that bark looked like. Okay, so you can also do this paper rub activity on leaves too. So if you have some sort of activity for your kids while you're on the trail, you and your kids can anticipate learning about something in a fun way, and it'll turn out to be a fun memory too. But even if you don't have an activity, when you're on that trail or at some naturey place like the beach or the zoo or the aquarium, we've all experienced that sense of amazement, right? There is something about nature, learning about it, experiencing it, that makes us think, wow, that is so cool. So that brings me to point number 3. Being outdoors will give you a sense of awe. All right, so making sense of nature in the outdoors will produce awe and amazement. The Bible says, when I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is man that you are mindful of him, and the son of man that you care for him? That's Psalm 8:3-4. That psalmist right there was observing nature, and he was feeling really small. In another psalm, it says, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. That's Psalm 19:1-2. When we are looking at nature, at God's creation, the Bible says that we are seeing God's character. God reveals himself through his creation. Romans 1:20 says, for God's invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. John MacArthur, who's one of my favorite authors, in his commentary about this verse said that we get to see God's power. God is the creator who made all that we see around us, and he is the one who constantly sustains it. We get to see his divine nature, and that includes his faithfulness, his kindness, and his graciousness. Ladies, wouldn't you agree that we learn the best by experiencing? You know, we can verbally teach and read to our kids about, gravity, the theory of it, but it's just a lofty idea. It's just a theory to them until we actually drop something like an apple. And then we get to see the sparkle in their eyes because they make that connection. They get it. They understand because they just got to experience it firsthand, and they got to make that connection. The Bible references nature a lot because God is saying that we can experience him through his creation. We see his power and might when we hear the loud crashing of a waterfall or the booming thunder. We see his faithfulness because we consistently see spring, summer, fall, and winter coming around every year. We experience his kindness. We experience the joy of seeing our kids with a huge smile on their face because they had just caught a baby lizard. And we experience his grace to us when we open our eyes in the morning and we get another day to know more about him through his creation. So I hope you ladies are feeling more encouraged to get out there with your kids, and I hope you guys have some fun discussions with the ladies at your table. Thank you.